The divorce papers weren't the worst part. The worst part was where she left her wedding ring, on the back of the toilet tank, next to the air freshener. Not on the dresser. Not in a box. Not even in the drawer where we used to hide Christmas candy from the neighbor's kids. No, the toilet tank. As if to say, this belongs with all the other useless crap I've flushed from my life. She didn't even tell me she left it there. I found it 2 hours after she slammed the door. That stupid, thin band of silver that used to mean something. Now it just sat there, like a reminder that even porcelain had more dignity than I did. I didn't touch it. I didn't even want to. I just sat on the edge of the tub, staring at it, trying to remember when everything started rotting underneath us. The mold had been growing for years, I think. I just never wanted to lift the floorboards. She didn't cry when she left. She didn't look back. She didn't say goodbye. She texted her lawyer before she reached the end of the street. Meanwhile, I tried to microwave the same dinner twice. I forgot it the first time. Cold chicken, rubber carrots, like the meals we ate in silence during our last 3 months together. She was probably drinking with her coworkers that night. They always liked her better than me. Even during our marriage, I was Janie's quiet husband at parties. A decoration with a beer. I scrolled through her profile at 1:18 a.m. She'd already changed her last name back. The next morning I stayed in bed. For too long. I didn't shave. Didn't answer messages. I half hoped I'd dream she came back, begging. That didn't happen. Instead, at 3:42 p.m., I got a knock on the door. Not the mailman. Not the neighbor. Not her. It was her sister. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. Not since the Christmas where Janie and I argued over board games and pretended everything was fine in front of family. She didn't look like she was here for small talk. No makeup. Hoodie. Her car parked halfway on the curb like she couldn't be bothered. And she was holding something. A blue folder. Her eyes were glassy. Before I could speak, she handed it to me and said one sentence. You need to read what she tried to hide from you. Then she turned around and walked off like she just delivered a bomb. And I stood there in my hallway, holding the folder with shaking hands, wondering why the hell my ex-wife's sister was the one giving me answers, and what question I'd never even thought to ask. There's something unnatural about reading private things that weren't meant for you, even when they involve you. Especially when they involve you. The folder wasn't labeled. No name. No date. Just a cheap plastic blue cover with a cracked corner and a faint smell of peppermint gum clinging to it like it had been left too long in someone's car. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there in the hallway like an idiot, replaying the last 5 seconds like they were a movie scene I didn't understand. Her sister, Sadie, hadn't spoken to me in months. No calls. No texts. No sympathy during the split. And now she shows up looking like she'd been crying all night and drops this thing off like she's delivering a court summons. I sat on the floor. Not the couch, not a chair. The floor. Because somehow, sitting low made it feel safer. Like whatever was inside wouldn't hit as hard if I was already close to rock bottom. The first page was a screenshot. A long text thread. One of those ones with gray and blue bubbles that goes on forever. I recognized the name at the top. Rodney Fitness Retreat. My stomach turned. I knew that name. Rodney was the guy my ex, Janie, said was her accountability coach when she started doing weekend boot camps and came home smelling like hotel shampoo. I used to joke about it. How she always seemed to be accountable in rooms that had blackout curtains. But this wasn't a joke. The screenshots showed her texting Rodney at 2:14 a.m., calling him babe, saying things like, "Can't wait to feel your hands again." I dreamed about that night in Asheville. That hot tub. Don't worry about Curtis. He still thinks I'm going through a self-love phase. My ears were ringing. My hands felt cold. There were receipts, too. Hotel bookings under a fake name, Janet Tinsley. Same credit card she and I used for groceries. Spa treatments. Room upgrades. All dated during the same weekends. She told me she was clearing her head. She'd been using our joint account to cheat on me in boutique hotels with a man who did squats for a living. And here's the part that destroyed me. Sadie had collected this. Not me. Not a private investigator. Her sister. The next page was a handwritten letter. Sloppy. Torn spiral edges. I didn't recognize the handwriting at first, but then I saw the bottom corner. A small smear of lipstick. Janie's. It was a draft of a note. Crossed out phrases. Rage and ink. Sadie, I know you think you're helping him, but you don't know everything. You never do. You've always been jealous. Stay out of this before I cut you off for good. Jealous? Of what? My confusion was growing by the second. I sat there on the floor, trying to process betrayal inside betrayal. Not only had my wife been cheating on me for months, but her own sister had been quietly documenting it. And now she was delivering the evidence like a final act in a play I never realized I was in. I called Sadie. No answer. I texted, "What is this? Why now?" No reply. Instead, 2 hours later, while I was still sitting on the floor, my doorbell rang again. It was her. Sadie. This time, she was holding a suitcase. She didn't wait for me to speak. "She knows I told you," she said. "She thinks I'm staying out of this. But I'm not." I blinked, stunned. "Why?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Because I'm tired of her pretending she didn't ruin both of us." And just like that, both of us, I realized this story wasn't just about a cheating wife. It was about something much older, much messier, and it had just begun to unravel. The suitcase wasn't what made me nervous. It was the way she dropped it just inside the doorway, like she'd done it before, like she had once lived here, like she belonged here. Sadie didn't ask permission. She didn't give me time to clean the mess I'd made of my apartment. The pizza box from 3 days ago, the laundry pile on the couch, the half-empty bottle of off-brand ginger ale that had somehow become a substitute for coping. She looked around like she was inspecting damage after a storm. Her mouth tightened at the sight of the stained rug, the ripped envelope on the table, the untouched lasagna still in the fridge from my pathetic attempt at self-care. "I won't stay long," she muttered. "Just need somewhere Janie won't expect." I should have asked questions. Should have said no. Should have told her I wasn't ready for whatever this was turning into. Instead, I just nodded and grabbed her suitcase and wheeled it into the guest room. The one Janie had turned into her yoga den/home office. The same room where I once found a scented candle that I later realized wasn't mine. Or hers. Sadie stood by the kitchen island, flipping through her phone like she was scanning enemy coordinates. "She's going to retaliate," she said. "She always does." "Retaliate for what?" I asked, finally finding my voice. "For me knowing the truth?" Sadie looked at me then, and I didn't recognize what was in her eyes. It wasn't pity. It wasn't anger either. It was something quieter, like guilt had taken up permanent residence behind her pupils. "No," she said. "She's going to retaliate because this isn't the first time she's ruined someone's life to keep a secret." She pulled out a small, beat-up notebook from her jacket pocket. Brown leather cover, worn at the corners. I could tell instantly it was old, older than our marriage. Maybe older than their relationship as sisters. "She did it to me," Sadie said, voice flat. 6 years ago, when I was engaged." I blinked. "You were what? I didn't even know you were ever." "Exactly," she snapped, but then quickly softened. "She erased it. All of it. Just like she erased you. It's what she does. If something doesn't fit into her perfect narrative, she slices it out. Like a tumor." I didn't know what to say, so I sat. Sadie opened the notebook. Inside were pages and pages of scribbles, half-ripped photos, even screenshots of emails from years ago. "There was a guy," she said. "His name was Donovan. I met him in Arizona. We were going to move in together. He was a photographer. Not rich, not flashy. But he saw me, not just as Janie's little sister. Not as a comparison. Just me." She swallowed, clearly holding back something much heavier than words. "One weekend, I introduced him to Janie. And within 2 weeks, he ghosted me. No goodbye, just gone." I stared at her. "You think she?" "I know she did. Because he messaged me a year later. Apologized. Told me Janie had visited him the weekend after I introduced them. Told him I'd cheated before. That I was unstable. That I was using him." She spun a whole story. My jaw dropped. Why would she? Because she couldn't stand me being happy before her. That's how it's always been. I shine too bright. She throws dirt. That phrase stuck with me. I shine too bright. She throws dirt. I felt sick. Not just because of what Sadie had been through, but because everything suddenly clicked. Every time I brought up something good happening to me around Janie, she'd shift the topic, minimize it, undercut it. If I got a bonus at work, she'd mention how her coworker got double. When I made a surprise dinner, she wasn't hungry. When I bought us tickets to a concert she'd once said she liked, she said it was too loud for her taste now. Every joy I tried to build, she quietly disassembled. But now, hearing what she did to her own sister, it felt like I'd been married to a magician of manipulation, smiling on the outside while setting fires behind closed doors. Sadie looked up at me. So when I saw her pulling the same moves again, disappearing for fitness retreats, making you doubt your memory, rewriting the timeline of your marriage, I started keeping receipts. Because I knew she'd do to you what she did to me, and I wasn't going to let her. There was a long silence after that. It wasn't just revelation. It was grief. For both of us. Two people who had once trusted the same woman, and had been burned by the same fire. I finally asked, so what now? Sadie didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over to her suitcase, unzipped the front pocket, and pulled out a flash drive. She's already moved on to the next guy, she said. But this time, she left behind something she shouldn't have. This drive? It has proof. Photos, messages, voicemails, all backed up. I leaned forward, barely breathing. She thinks she's already won, Sadie whispered. But I think it's time we remind her. Not everyone stays quiet. I didn't plug it in right away. The flash drive sat on the edge of the table like a loaded weapon, small, silver, and vibrating with potential energy. Sadie had placed it between us like it wasn't just plastic and memory chips, but something radioactive. I stared at it for minutes. She didn't rush me. In fact, she didn't say a word. She just curled her legs beneath her on the other end of the couch, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the TV that wasn't even on. I think she knew I needed time, not to open the files, but to accept that I actually wanted to. Because once you open something like that, you can't unsee it. You don't get to pretend anymore. Eventually, I reached for my laptop. Not the work one. I wasn't that dumb. I had a personal one, cracked at the hinge, that I hadn't touched since the divorce started. It still had old drafts of love letters I never sent and vacation folders from years ago we never took. I booted it up, plugged in the drive. There was only one folder, labeled Pattern. Inside, dozens of subfolders. Rodney, trainer. Bryce, coworker. Kyle, neighbor. Paul, realtor. And then one that made my blood run cold. Curtis, husband. My name. I clicked it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Most of the other folders had screenshots of messages, voice memos, receipts, surveillance-style photos, like Sadie had been building case files on a criminal. But the one labeled with my name? It was different. It was a journal. Typed. Dated. Organized. The entries were clinical. Emotionless. Like scientific observations of someone watching an experiment from behind glass. Curtis suspects something. Downplayed his reaction. Reaffirmed by referencing past conflict. Still compliant. Tried new narrative, spiritual disconnect. He responded with guilt. Noted. Manipulation fatigue is increasing. Need to introduce distraction, finances, or family. Sadie texted again. She's beginning to connect dots. Must manage her. She had been tracking me. Not just cheating. Not just lying. She had been observing me like I was a lab rat she was trying to break piece by piece. I scrolled further down and found a folder labeled Voice Memos. My hands were shaking. I played one. It was her voice. Calm. Cold. Clinical. He still thinks we can fix things. Part of me feels sorry for him. But he's a soft place to land. If I leave now, I lose access to his benefits and contacts. Better to stretch the illusion until Q4, then cut clean. Q4. Like I was a quarterly loss on some financial chart. I felt sick. But I kept listening. Because as horrible as it was, it felt like finally ripping the curtain down on a performance I didn't even realize was happening. There was another voice in one of the later recordings, male. Familiar. I played it twice before it clicked. Bryce. Her coworker. The one she insisted was like a brother. In the recording, she laughed and said, "He's probably journaling again. He still writes those long, stupid paragraphs about his feelings. It's like babysitting a golden retriever with depression." And they laughed. Together. At me. I closed the laptop. Hard. Sadie was watching me. No pity in her eyes, just waiting. Like she'd seen this moment coming. "You still think I'm overreacting?" she asked softly. "No," I whispered. "I think I underreacted. To everything." The silence stretched until I couldn't take it anymore. "Why did you collect all this? Why now?" Sadie hesitated. Then she leaned forward, her voice barely audible. "Because you're not the only one she targeted." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She reached for her phone and opened her messages. Then she slid it across the table to me. A text thread with an unknown number. Long, angry. Threatening. At the bottom, a name I hadn't seen before. Miles Calder. Sadie whispered. "He's the guy before you. Janie tried to ruin him, too. Only he didn't disappear. He's resurfaced. and he's ready to fight back. I sat there, stunned, staring at a sentence Miles had sent just days earlier. Tell Janie I'm done hiding. I have the records. I have the tapes. She's going to pay for what she did. I looked at Sadie. What records? She met my eyes. Marriage fraud, financial fraud, and something worse. I didn't ask. I just knew. This wasn't about cheating anymore. It was about a woman who built her entire life on deception, and now, her past was finally clawing its way to the surface. And I was still tangled in it. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I closed my eyes at one point, I think, but my body never convinced my brain to shut up. Not with that flash drive burned into my memory, and Sadie lying on the pull-out mattress in the guest room just down the hall like some witness to a crime no one else believed had happened. I kept hearing that voice memo. Janie calling me a golden retriever with depression. The way they laughed. The way my own thoughts felt like a joke in someone else's comedy routine. At 7:08 a.m., my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. No name. No location. Just a blank caller ID and a sense of dread crawling up my spine. I let it go to voicemail. Then, 30 seconds later, a text came through. Curtis Adam Blaine. That's still your legal name, right? I froze. No one called me that. Not even Janie. Not even my mom unless I was in trouble. Another text followed. I'm not here to hurt you. You don't know me, but I knew her. Better than you did. You need to know what she did to me before she did it to you. Call me back. Miles. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour. Sadie had mentioned him, sure. Said he was someone Janie had nearly destroyed before me. But she hadn't said much else. And the way this guy found my number, my full name, that didn't feel like some casual ex looking for closure. It felt like an investigator reaching out to the next victim in a pattern. I stepped outside to call him back. It was early, crisp, quiet. The kind of morning that feels deceptively clean, like the world hasn't remembered its regrets yet. I stood barefoot on my cold balcony in a hoodie and gym shorts, phone to my ear, heart hammering. He picked up on the second ring. Curtis, the voice said. It was low, steady, and oddly calm. Too calm. Yeah. Who is this? Miles Calder. Janie's last husband. Or, if you ask her, her unofficial mistake. We were never legally registered because she filed the paperwork under a fake name. She told the court I abandoned her. My mind short-circuited. I didn't even know she was married before. She didn't want you to. That was the point. And then, like he'd rehearsed it, Miles laid it all out. He met Janie when she was working in Miami. She had a different last name then. Claimed she'd been reinventing herself after a bad childhood. Played the victim card flawlessly. Said her sister was a manipulative mess. Said her exes were abusers. Said she just wanted peace. She mirrored everything I said I wanted, Miles explained. Down to the music. The travel dreams. The food I liked. I thought I'd found a soulmate. But I didn't marry a person. I married a mirror. He told me about how the lies started small. A fake promotion at work. A pregnancy that vanished into a miscarriage no doctor ever confirmed. A bank account she convinced him to let her manage, then drained over a 3-month period. When he finally confronted her, she gaslit him. Told him he was paranoid, depressed, insecure. Then she disappeared for 3 days and came back with divorce papers that had already been predated and filed in a county they'd never lived in. She left me with $38 in my checking account and a credit score that took 2 years to fix, Miles said. But I let it go until I saw her name pop up again. This time in a private background report. Your name was attached to it. Why would my name be? She tried to take out a business line of credit under your name, Curtis. Last year. Got flagged for verification because she botched the middle initial. I felt my legs give out. I slid down the balcony railing and sat on the concrete, jaw slack. Miles kept talking. She's not just a serial manipulator. She's methodical. She studies people like a profile sheet. What they lack, what they want. She gives it to them, until she doesn't. Until she takes more than they realize they ever gave. He had documentation, IP logs, email trails, bank transfer records. Even a photo of Janie sitting in a financial advisor's office with forged paperwork claiming to be me. And here's the part that floored me. Sadie had been feeding Miles info for months, quietly, carefully, building a timeline, keeping distance, protecting herself legally while watching her sister burn more bridges. She never thought Sadie would turn on her, Miles said. But she did. And now we've got enough to force her into a corner. I sat there for a long time after the call ended. I didn't know whether to be relieved or horrified. Janie hadn't just lied. She hadn't just cheated. She had orchestrated every relationship like a financial heist dressed up as a love story. By the time I walked back into the apartment, Sadie was awake, coffee in hand, hair still a mess, wearing an oversized sweatshirt I hadn't seen since Janie moved out. She looked up at me like she knew everything just changed. "Well?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to my desk, pulled out the drawer, and retrieved a key I'd hidden weeks ago. "The storage unit," I said. Sadie tilted her head. "What about it?" "She kept a box in there. Said it was just old tax records. Never let me look inside. If there's anything left, I want to know what else she buried." Sadie's eyes narrowed. "You think it's still there?" I nodded. And for the first time since Janie left, I felt something unfamiliar creeping in beneath the fog of humiliation and betrayal. Purpose. Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity. We were going to open that unit. And whatever was waiting in that locked steel box, lies, evidence, maybe even the final proof of what Janie had been doing for years, it was going to break this story wide open. The padlock clicked open like it had been waiting for us. It was a gray morning, cold enough that I could see my breath when I exhaled, but not cold enough to stop my hands from sweating as I turned the key and pulled up the rattling steel door of the storage unit Janie had insisted we share back when we moved in together. The same unit she hadn't visited in over a year. Sadie stood beside me, arms folded, her eyes scanning every inch of the space like she was casing a scene. Neither of us said anything at first, just silence and dust. It wasn't a large unit. 10 by 10 maybe, boxes stacked to shoulder height. A couple pieces of unused furniture, a broken lamp, and that old wine rack she never let me hang. But my eyes weren't on any of that. I was looking for one thing, the navy blue filing bin she told me not to touch. The one she always shoved to the back corner, like it was radioactive. And there it was, half buried under a broken chair and a rolled-up rug. I dragged it out. It was heavier than I expected. Locked, too, one of those cheap sliding latches with a number code. I didn't know it, but Sadie did. Without a word, she knelt down and punched in 4 numbers, 0318. The lid popped. Inside were dozens of manila folders, a few memory sticks in labeled Ziploc bags, and an envelope stamped "Confidential. Do not copy" in bold red letters. That one was rubber banded and sealed. But what caught my eye was a piece of paper, loose, folded in half, with my name written on the outside. In her handwriting. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. It was a power of attorney form. Signed. Notarized. With my name. My address. My signature. But I never signed it. "I never signed this," I said, my voice cracking. Sadie moved closer, examining the bottom corner. "This isn't a copy. This is a filed original. Dated 11 months ago." I scanned the details. It gave Janie full authority over my financial accounts, real estate decisions, insurance policies, even business dealings, as if I'd handed her the keys to every legal aspect of my life. Except I didn't. I never even saw this form until now. My hands started to shake. She forged it. She forged everything. Sadie pulled out her phone and started snapping photos of the form, the notary stamp, the date. She moved fast, methodical, like she had done this before. She probably had. She had this ready before the divorce, I said, voice thin. Before she even told me things weren't working. She was planning the exit. Strategically. Legally. Sadie didn't answer. She was digging through the rest of the bin now. Folder after folder. Each one labeled with a different year, a different city. Names of men I didn't recognize, and some I did. I found one marked M. Calder, Miles. Inside were printouts of his court documents, correspondence, and disturbingly detailed notes on his weaknesses. Emotional. Poor with confrontation. Keep him reactive. Leverage father's illness. Jesus, I muttered. She kept case files. Like she was running operations. And then Sadie pulled out a folder with my name. This one was different. It had a subfolder labeled Contingency, Prenup Number 2, and signed. Inside, a document outlining a second prenup agreement, one Janie had drafted without ever showing me. It essentially gave her postmarital claim to everything if certain conditions were met. It wasn't filed, but it was typed, dated, and notarized, with her signature already on it. She'd been preparing to either have me sign it under pressure or forge it later if she needed it. She was going to use this if the POA failed, Sadie whispered. I never saw this, I repeated. She kept telling me prenups made her uncomfortable. Said love didn't need lawyers. I sat down on a box labeled old books because my legs couldn't hold me anymore. My whole body felt numb. And that's when Sadie said something that made my blood turn cold. She never loved you, Curtis. I don't think she's capable of loving anyone. I think she studies people, finds their cracks, then builds a life around exploiting them. That should have been the end of it. That should have been the lowest point. But it wasn't. Because at the very bottom of the bin, taped under a false cardboard divider, was something even Sadie hadn't seen before. A prepaid phone. Dead, but intact. We brought it back to my apartment, charged it in silence, and when it finally lit up, there were 3 things on it. A list of contacts, none with names, just initials and burner numbers. Dozens of photos of bank transfers to foreign accounts under aliases. A voice message from 2 weeks before the divorce that simply said, if Curtis asks questions, activate the Oregon plan. Move the funds, reroute the equity, and if needed, burn the records. He'll cry for a while, but he doesn't fight back. I played it 3 times. Each time, the words cut deeper. He'll cry for a while, but he doesn't fight back. She knew me better than I knew myself. But she was wrong about one thing. Because now I had Sadie. I had Miles. I had proof. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just going to cry. I was going to fight. There's a difference between being angry and being ready. I'd been angry for weeks. Quietly. Pathetically. The kind of anger that just sits in your chest like static, humming but never sparking. But now, sitting in my apartment with Sadie reviewing forged documents, burner phones, financial traps, and betrayal spelled out in legal ink, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was finally ready. We didn't go to the police right away. Sadie warned me against it. You only go once, she said. And when you do, you better have everything lined up, airtight. No gaps. Because if Janie smells it early, she'll vanish again. She's done it before. She'll do it better this time. So we planned. Over the next week, Miles and I spoke daily, sometimes twice a day. The man had rebuilt his life after Janie torched it, and you could hear the steel in his voice now. No more fear, just quiet precision. He helped me cross-reference everything. He showed me how to pull my own credit history, how to flag fraudulent activity, and how to freeze accounts she might have accessed. He even introduced me to a lawyer. Her name was Patrice Linley, civil fraud specialist. The kind of person who wore confidence like armor and didn't flinch when I told her my wife had forged a power of attorney form, filed unapproved prenup drafts, and accessed accounts in my name. This isn't just financial abuse, she said calmly. This is orchestrated identity manipulation. And if what you're telling me checks out, we're looking at both criminal charges and civil penalties. But then she asked the one question I wasn't ready for. Do you still love her? I froze. Because the answer should have been no. It should have been instant. Obvious. But it wasn't. I didn't love what she was. But I still loved who I thought she was. And that kind of betrayal takes a while to dry out of your system. I don't know, I admitted. Patrice didn't judge me. She just nodded. That's fine. But by the time we're done, you will. That night, Sadie came home with a printed document. She slapped it on the table like she was dropping a bomb. Found it, she said. Took 3 burner numbers, 2 fake LinkedIn accounts, and an old email she forgot to deactivate. But I got it. It was a PDF file. The Oregon Plan, 2023 edition. 10 pages. Outlines. Steps. Even a flowchart. It read like a con artist's guidebook. She had named her schemes. Each phase had code names. Emotional entry, asset control, identity discreditation, legal shift, then finally, erasure. According to the file, erasure wasn't about just leaving a man. It was about scrubbing his credit, reputation, network, and even online identity until he was practically untraceable. A ghost. A non-threat. Someone who couldn't follow her trail even if he wanted to. She listed examples. Past targets have struggled to obtain housing, credit, or legal footing. Rebuilding takes 3 to 5 years. Risk neutralized. I wanted to puke. She did this to how many people? I asked, my hands gripping the table. 4 confirmed, Sadie said. Possibly 6. You were meant to be number 7. 7. Lucky number 7. But this time, her math was off. I wasn't going to disappear. In fact, I was going to make her seen for the first time. That night, we got serious. Miles sent over a full digital timeline. Texts, travel receipts, IP logs showing where Janie had accessed my bank account from locations I'd never visited. Sadie traced one of the voice memos from the burner phone to a cloud backup Janie forgot to disconnect. It contained audio of a conversation she had with another man, possibly her next target, where she referred to me as her emotional exit plan. She said you were the dull blade she needed to get out of her last situation clean, Sadie whispered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The part of me that once wanted to believe she was just broken, not cruel, that part finally died. We built a digital evidence drive. Labeled, organized, archived. It included proof of the forged POA, audio recordings of her strategic manipulation, screenshots of her attempting to access my financials after separation, the PDF of the Oregon plan, a digital forensic report linking her device to the faked prenup document, 3 sworn statements, mine, Sadie's, and Miles's. The file name was simple, January 1st. Exposed. We didn't rush to use it, but it existed now, and that meant she was no longer in control. Then, something happened. An envelope arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a single printed photo. It was of me, sitting in my car outside Sadie's apartment, taken from across the street. Blurry, but recognizable. On the back, in black Sharpie, were 5 words. You're not ready for this. Sadie found me holding it with white knuckles. She knows, I said. Sadie exhaled, calm but tense. Then it's time we stop waiting for her next move. I nodded, because the next step wasn't collecting more evidence. It was exposing everything, publicly. We didn't go viral. Not immediately. It started with a quiet upload. Miles had a friend, a cybersecurity analyst who also ran a legal watchdog blog. He hosted the full report anonymously on a secure site, linking every piece of verified evidence to public records and screenshots. Sadie and I used that link in a short, carefully worded Reddit post. No names, no identifying info, just facts. Ex-wife created a documented playbook for financial and emotional manipulation, then ran the same script across 7 different men. The thread didn't blow up instantly, but within 48 hours, it passed 10,000 upvotes. Legal subreddits started dissecting the PDF. Users tracked down Janie's fake profiles, connected dots. Then, someone recognized one of the burner accounts, claimed she tried to scam their cousin just months ago. More people came forward. Names, dates, receipts. We hadn't just exposed a scheme. We had sparked a pattern recognition wildfire. The best part? We stayed quiet the entire time. No gloating, no revenge speeches. Just quiet submission of the flash drive to Patrice, who filed a multi-claim case on our behalf. Civil, strategic, and airtight. Janie's reaction was almost cinematic. She showed up at my apartment. Middle of the day. Sunglasses. Messy bun. Like she thought she still had control. Sadie answered the door. They stared at each other for a full 10 seconds before Janie spoke. This is pathetic, she said, voice clipped. I could destroy both of you. Sadie didn't blink. You already tried. Janie turned her gaze to me, standing just behind her. She looked at me like I was furniture, some outdated thing she regretted ever buying. You're really going to humiliate me like this? After everything I gave you? I almost laughed. After everything you took from me? I said, I'm not humiliating you, Janie. You did that to yourself. She didn't flinch. She just shook her head, then said something I'll never forget. You think the world will believe you over me? And in that moment, it was clear. She still thought she was the hero of this story. But this time, the story wasn't hers to tell. We didn't let her inside. The door shut. 2 weeks later, she was served. The lawsuit included charges of identity fraud, falsification of legal documents, misuse of power of attorney, and financial manipulation with intent to defraud. Civil penalties, not jail time, but enough to put her in debt and on the radar. Patrice coordinated with Miles's legal team. Another man stepped forward. Then another. A class action suit began to form. Her professional reputation? Gone. She tried to reinvent herself online. New name, new city, new job, but it didn't stick. Not anymore. The internet remembers now. And she couldn't hide behind her charm when her entire manual of manipulation was publicly indexed and archived. As for me, I didn't become a hero. I didn't even feel vindicated at first. Just empty. Until I woke up one morning to a simple text from Sadie. The air feels clearer today, doesn't it? And it did. We still talk. A lot, actually. Not romantically. Not yet. But with the kind of honesty that only comes after surviving a shared fire. She moved into a new apartment a few blocks from mine. Got a job teaching creative writing again. Said the words finally started flowing back. I started therapy. Joined a financial literacy group for men who'd experienced legal abuse and divorce. Even got a promotion at work after months of feeling like I didn't exist. I'm rebuilding. Not fast. Not perfectly. But steadily. And sometimes, when the apartment is quiet and the lights are low, I think back to that day in court. When Janie smiled like she'd won everything. And I smile now too. Because she did win, for a while. But eventually, she lost the only thing she ever truly cared about. Control.